Hello there, sunshines. We are back with another session. Today, we are learning about classes and IDs. We're still in the selectors portion. If you missed this stream over the selectors, over the beginning of selectors, I do have it on my YouTube channel. You can just reference the last video so we can get you caught up until here. Okay. So now let's go ahead and jump right into it. So let's see here. Classes and IDs. CSS can select HTML elements by their type, class, and ID. CSS classes and IDs have different purposes, which can affect which one you use to style HTML elements. CSS classes are meant to be reused over many elements. Okay. By writing CSS classes, you can style elements in a variety of ways by mixing classes. For instance, imagine a page with two headlines. One headline needs to be bold and blue, and the other needs to be bold and green. Instead of writing separate CSS rules for each headline that repeat each other's code, it's better to write a dot bold CSS rule and a dot green CSS rule and a dot blue CSS rule. Then you can give one headline the bold green classes and the other the bold blue classes. Got it? While classes are meant to be used many times, an ID is meant to style only one element. As you'll learn in the next exercise, IDs override the styles of types and classes. Since IDs override these styles, they should be used sparingly and only on elements that need to always appear the same. Okay. So now we work. So to demonstrate using classes on multiple elements, let's give a few elements the same style. In the index.html file, there are 4 H2 elements. Give each of them a class of heading dash background. Okay, so we're going to go and find our H2 elements here. We have H1, H5, H6. Here's our first H2. I don't think we're going to delete destination. Maybe we can just add another one. No. There's supposed to be a dash right there too. Okay, I guess this is what it's supposed to look like. Give each of them a class of heading background. Let's try something. That was destination. And I wonder if we can do more than one class. Nope. No, we cannot. We can only do one class. Alrighty. Just gonna go back. Find our next H2 element. Okay, so they looks like they all say destination. We're gonna make that heading dash background. Then we'll just go ahead and copy this. Find our next H2 element. We see H5 here. Here's our next H2 element. I'm gonna delete that. Paste heading background. And then our last H2 element is here. And we are going to add a class here. Class set that equal to paste. H2 class, and then put that, close that tag up. There we go. So now we're going to run that. Let's see. So what we're going to focus on here is this first one. We're going to look in our browser at 1 Florence, Italy, and see if we notice a difference. Let's run it. Nope. I don't see anything different. Okay, let's keep going. Now let's give a unique style to a single element using ID. On line 13 of the index.html file, there's an H6 element that displays the time the article on the page was published. Add an ID to the H6 element and give it a value of publish-time. So here we go. We're going to reference line 13. And we're going to add an ID attribute. So simple as typing ID. And then we're going to set that value to publish. Okay, now we're going to run that. Then in style.css file, create a rule set targeting the new heading dash background class and give it a declaration of. So let's go ahead and copy that. We're going to scroll. So we're going to create a rule targeting the new class. Okay. So this right here, this targets attributes. So the period targets attributes in our HTML file. So if we go here, if we look here, what's happening? If we look here at this one, at this selector, and then reference our HTML file, we're just going to look for title. Okay, it was here. And then we added uppercase later on. Yeah. So dot is for a class. Is that what I said? Or dot is for an attribute? Okay, we're going to keep going. This right here, this selector references, okay, this one references a class. Let's see. Let's go to our HTML and look for article dash title. Okay. So it looks like the hashtag references the ID and the dot references the class. So here's the ID. It says article title, and we used the hashtag to reference it. Now, for the classes, oh, it literally tells you right there. See that? The hashtag is used for that ID equal to article dash title. And then for this one, when I hover over that, you can see the dot references the class. Okay, we're caught up. We're caught up. So in order for us to create a rule set targeting a class, we're going to do that hashtag heading dash background. And we're going to open it up with a curly brace. And we copy that, paste it there. Okay, after your password. All right, so let's run it and see what happens. Did you add a rule set with the heading dash background selector and a background color? I thought so. Oh, oh, okay. I used the hashtag. I was supposed to use a dot. There we go. There we go. Now we see a difference. So this changed to the color aqua. Okay, so now we all know, I hope we're on the same page. This dot is going to reference a class in your HTML file, and then the hashtag is going to reference your ID attribute. Okay, we're caught up. All right, moving on. So finally, in the style.css file, create another rule set using the publish-time ID selector. Add the declaration. Let's go ahead and copy that. Since IDs are single use, this element now has a unique ID that can't be used again in this document. Okay. So, okay. Since it's an ID, what are we going to use here? We're going to use a dot or a period or a hashtag. That's right. We're going to use a hashtag in this case. Here we go. Hashtag publish hashtag. See, we're learning. We're going to open up the curly brackets, and then we're going to paste our declaration in there and run that. All right, it's right. Did y'all see that change happen? So here, let me take it away, copy, and run that. And we're going to look here at published 2 days ago. So we'll take a look at what happens when I run it before the CSS and then after that CSS. We're still looking at that published 2 days ago. Just changed the color gray. Awesome. All right, next. Okay, so we're going to be talking about specificity. Specificity is the order by which the browser decides which CSS styles will be displayed. A best practice in CSS is to style elements while using the lowest degree of specificity so that if an element needs a new style, it's easy to override. IDs are the most specific selector in CSS, followed by classes, and finally type. Okay, I feel like that needs to be written down. So, in order of specificity, it goes IDs, classes, then type. So, IDs, the most specific, and then classes is number 2, then type is number 3. Okay. So, for example, consider the following HTML and CSS. Class headline. Da-da-da. This is HTML, and then this is our CSS saying change the color of our heading to red. You can also change the color to fire red. Okay, let's see what this is saying. In the example code above, the color of the heading would be set to fire brick as the class selector is more specific than the type selector. If an ID attribute and selector were added to the code above, the styles within the ID selector's body would override all other styles for the heading. Okay. So this here, oh, did I highlight that? Okay, this here would override this because our class is more specific than our type. Okay, I think I'm following. Are y'all following? let me know. Okay. So over time, as files grow with code, many elements may have IDs, which can make CSS difficult to edit since a new, more specific style must be created to change the style of an element. To make sure or to make styles easy to edit, it's best to style with a type selector if possible. If not, add a class selector. If that is not specific enough, then consider using an ID selector. So it's kind of inverse. So the most specific goes from ID to class to type. And in order to make your CSS easier to edit, then you want to start with type as number one, class as number two, and then ID as number three. Make sense? I'm following. All right, to get to work. To compare type, class, and ID specificity, let's add a type and ID to an existing element. On line 12 of the index.html file, there is an H5 element with the author's name. Let's go ahead and go to line 12. Give the element a class of author dash class and an ID of author dash ID. Okay, so we're here and we're going to add a class. Set that equal to author dash class. Oh, and here we go. I'm gonna just take that and close it here. Then we can also add an ID here, I'm sure. Let's set that to author dash ID. Sure. And we run that. Moving on. The element now has three ways of selecting it by type, class, and ID. Add the three following rule sets to the bottom of the style.css file utilizing each of the selectors. So here is the type. Here is the class. Yep, here's the class. And then here's the ID. So let's go ahead and copy that. Go to our style.css file and paste it here. Paste. Okay, so each of these rules selects the same element in a different way. Which style will win the specificity war? Click run to find out. What are we thinking? The most specific one is going to override the least specific ones. So we know in order of specificity, ID is number one, it's the most specific, and then class, and then type. So that being said, I think the color of by Stacy Gray would be cornflower blue. Okay, let's see. There it goes, cornflower blue. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move along here. And right now we're going to talk about chaining. So when writing CSS rules, it's possible to require an HTML element to have two or more CSS selectors at the same time. Okay, this is done by combining multiple selectors, which we will refer to as chaining. For instance, if there was a special class for H1 elements, the CSS would look like below. Okay. The code above will select only the H1 elements with a class of ID. Oh, no, where did I get that from? With a class of special. If a paragraph element also had a class of special, the rule in the example would not style the paragraph. So, okay. Let's use chaining to select only the H2 elements with destinations and add a style to them. So in our style.css file, write a CSS selector for H2 elements with a class of .destination. So here, scroll down, H2 destination. And then inside of the selector's curly braces, add this declaration. Let's go ahead and copy that. And then open up our curly braces. We're going to paste that here. This will change the font of the H2 elements. This will change the font of the H2 elements that also have the class destination. The last H2 element, more destinations, will remain unchanged. So I don't know if y'all remember, but at the beginning of this, I thought we changed all the. Oh, okay. I don't know if y'all noticed what happened here. So we can add multiple classes using a space to separate them. I did not understand that when I did this. And what I did was I completely deleted destination and only set class equal to heading dash background. And I guess they went back and added destination back in here, but I do not remember doing that. So now we have two classes, and this is the proper syntax to add two classes is set the class, then here's one class separated by a space, another class. Okay, I'm following. And they did that for each of the H2 elements. As you can see, there's two classes, destination and heading dash background. So now we can go back to the style.css file since we know there is now a destination class for sure. Then looks like boom, we'll go ahead and run that. And it changed the font. What were in these H2 headings? Okay, Florence, Italy, Beijing, China. So here, I didn't quite see a difference, so we're going to copy that and run it. Oh, okay, it does change the font. So if you look closely here at the font, we're going to go ahead and paste our CSS. H back. And then closely at the font here and here. We're going to run that. And the font does change. Okay. Alrighty, next. Now we're talking about Descendant Combinator. So in addition to chaining selectors to select elements, CSS also supports selecting elements that are nested within other HTML elements, also known as descendants. For instance, consider the following HTML. This is an unordered list with the class attribute set to main list. Then here are our list items with that closing unordered list tag. So the nested list item elements are descendants of the unordered list element and can be selected with the descendant combinator like so. Okay, so this CSS is referencing our class attribute, but specifically the descendants of that class or that element that the class is in. Okay. So in the example above, the dot main dash list selects the element with the main list class, which is the unordered list element. The descendant LIs are selected by adding LI to the selector separated by a space. This results in main list LI as the final selector. Selecting elements in this way can make our selectors even more specific by making sure they appear in the context we expect. Okay, so in our index.html file, each destination has a paragraph with a description class below it. Nested within each description paragraph is an H5 element with the text top attractions. They're a little hard to read since they're turned yellow. Let's fix that. Okay, can y'all see this? I have no clue what that says. Navigate to the style.css file. Add a rule set that uses the Descendant Combinator to target only the H5 element or H5 descendants of elements with the class dot description. Do we understand what's being asked of us? Okay, so let's just follow the instructions here. We're going to go to our style.css file. Add a rule set that uses, the Descendant Combinator to target only the H5 descendants. Okay, so let's go here. We see one H5. Okay, here's the second H5. And this one actually has descendants. Let me make sure there's not any. Okay, here's another H5 with descendants again, and another H5 with descendants. Okay. So we're going to add a rule set that uses the Descendant Combinator. So I suppose that the descendant that we're going to add is the list items. Let's try this. We're going to do H5 dot description, then add li. We're going to open our curly braces. I think that's it. Let's run that. Did you write a selector for the H5 elements inside the description class in the style.css file? Okay, let's reference. Let's go here. Maybe because this doesn't have any classes or anything. I'm actually not sure what to do on this one. No classes. Okay, mm, maybe I can just do dot description. I don't understand. No. So let's just do H5.
No bananas, no nuts.
Sorry about that. Oh, Lord. Let's see if I can find any. Now I am confused. Now I am confused. Okay, I see. I'm hearing that you have H5 with descendants here. Let me go to it. We're going to go to our index.html file. Scroll down. Okay, see, here's our H5. And I'm assuming this unordered list would be a descendant of that. And then the list items would be, so this would be the child element, and then the LI would be the grandchild of the H5 element. Let me know if that's correct or not, because these are the only places where I see that H5 has descendants. Up here, and then right here. Descendants must be enclosed inside of the H5, inside the opening and closing tags. So okay, so I'm not understanding then what the question is asking, because it says here, nested within each description paragraph. Oh, okay. So it says nested within each description paragraph is an H5 element with the top attractions. So here in each description paragraph, I'm so confused. I am so confused. The sentence must be enclosed inside of the H5. Okay, what's enclosed inside of? Okay, okay, this is what's enclosed inside of the H5, but the opening and closing tags, this one's the opening one, and this one's the closing. Let's write this in. Each destination has a paragraph with a description class below it. So here it is, description class. Nested within each description paragraph is an H5 element with the text top attractions. They're a little hard to read since they're turned yellow, so we're going to fix that. Okay. Navigate to style.css. Add a rule set that uses the Descendant Combinator to target only the H5 descendants of elements with the class dot description. Oh, I am stumped. Okay, it says, looks like the H5 is nested inside the div. Okay, that is what that looks like. See, here's our div element here. And then the H5 elements. Oh, this is our closing div tag here. And the H5 is the child to the div element. Okay. I'm following there. I'm following there. So in this case, it's gonna look like dot description li. Did I just overcomplicate this? That H5 really threw me off. Oh wait, but I tried this already. Okay, so we're just gonna copy. This is what they gave us. Let's see. Okay, see, did you write a selector for the H5 element inside the description class in style.css? Okay, so we're gonna use the class, then the H5. So what I'm seeing in the chat. Okay, so this is a class, and then we're just gonna do a space H5. So is it not li? Let's see. Oh my goodness. That's it. Oh my gosh, I feel like rocket science. Thank you so much for your help. Okay, so finally we got that down. I feel like that was way simpler than I made it, but I was genuinely confused. Okay, so now we're going to do, so let's see, inside the curly braces of the selector, add a declaration. Now we can do this. Copy that, and then we're gonna paste it here. Then run. Okay, so that changed. What was it? Oh, okay. See our top attractions here to that blue violet color here. Alrighty. Now let's go ahead and move on. Phew. Okay, now we're on chaining and specificity together. So in the last exercise, instead of selecting all H5 elements, you selected only the H5 elements nested inside the description elements. Okay. Okay, got it. So this CSS selector was more specific than writing only H5. Adding more than one tag, class, or ID to a CSS selector increases the specificity of the CSS selector. For instance, consider the following CSS. Okay, so this looks like a type, and this looks like the class and the type. So both of these CSS rules define what a paragraph element should look like. Since the main P has a class and a P type as its selector, only the P elements inside the main element will appear red. This occurs despite there being another more general rule that states P elements, should be blue. Okay, so let's put that to work. To show how specificity increases with additional selectors, let's create another rule set with the Descendant Combinator and then compare it to a rule set without. So in the style.css file, write a rule set using the Descendant Combinator to select the H4 elements nested in the LI elements. Inside of the curly braces, write, let's go ahead and copy that now. So to show specificity increases with additional selectors, let's create another rule set with the Descendant Combinator and then compare it to a rule set without the Descendant Combinator. Okay. Select the H4. Let's look at our HTML. And the H4 elements nested in the LI elements. So we're going to scroll, scroll, scroll. In the LI. Okay. So I'm looking for LIs with H4 nested in it. Maybe I should just search for H4. Here's H1, H5, H6. We have H2 and H5 and H2. I see an H5 and H2, H5, H2. Oh, here they go. Here they go. Okay. So we're going to write a rule set using the Descendant Combinator to select the H4 elements nested inside the Li elements. Okay. Here, let's look at an example. That main inside the main element. So the H4 is inside the Li element. So we're going to put key elements inside the main. We're going to put Li first and then H4. Let's scroll here. It's going to be dot Li and then H4. So this is saying H4 is inside of the Li element. We're going to open our curly braces and we already copied our declaration. So we're going to paste that there. Let's see. Did I put H4 after Li? I thought I did. Not Li, H4. Hmm. Inside the style on here. So in the style.css file, write a rule set using the Descendant Combinator to select the H4 elements nested inside the Li elements. And go here. We're going to scroll, scroll, scroll. Okay, here. Oh, okay. So since Li is a type, we're not going to use that dot, I'm assuming. And then we're going to use dot H4. Wait, oh no, we're not using any dots. We're not using any dots. Let's go here and take the dots out because we're not referencing a class, we're referencing a type. Let's see if that does anything. Okay, hey. All right, so now create a rule set targeting elements with just the H4 type and add a declaration of, let's go ahead and copy that. So now we're just going to do H4 and open our curly brace, paste that there. Run that. Will the H4 elements turn blue? Click run to find out. What was the H4 elements? I don't see anything blue. And really quickly, just so I know that what we're looking at. Okay, so it's going to be the actual destination: Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Cape Town, South Africa, and La Paz, Bolivia. So that's going to be, okay, down here. All right, so this is what we're looking at. So when we ran both of these CSS, the color came back gold because this is the more specific. We use more specific selectors here than this more general one. Okay. So now we can move on. And then for multiple selectors, in order to make CSS more concise, it's possible to add CSS styles to multiple CSS selectors all at once. This prevents writing repetitive code. For instance, the following code has repetitive style attributes. So here, Okay, and here this is the property value. And is that it? Property name and the value. I think that's it. But they're the same for both. So instead of writing font dash family in Georgia twice for two selectors, we can separate the selectors by a comma to apply the same style to both, like this. All right. This is getting a little bit more complex now. By separating the CSS selectors with a comma, both the H1 elements and the elements with the menu class will receive the font family Georgia styling. So here, this is what it looks like. We're probably going to reference this here in a second. So in the style.css file, write selectors for the H5 and LI elements so they will both be styled with the same CSS rule. Apply this style declaration. So let's go ahead and copy that. We're going to look in our HTML to see if this is an ID, class, or type. Looking for the H5. So this is a type here. And then LI is also type. So we're not going to be using any dots or hashtags when we write the CSS. I'm assuming it's going to look like both be styled. Let me make sure one is not nested in the other. Okay, so H5 and LI are both nested inside of the div element. I think we're good. I think we're going to start with H5. H5, and then we're going to do comma, LI. We're actually going to do it like how they show us here. It looks like there's LI. We're going to open our curly brace and then paste that in there, and let's run that. Okay, that's pretty simple. All right. Now, next. Okay, so this was definitely a more complex session. Here, let's go over what we learned. So throughout this lesson, you learned how to select HTML elements with CSS and apply styles to them. Let's read what we learned. So we learned that CSS can select HTML elements by type, class, ID, and attribute. We learned all elements can be selected using the universal selector. We learned an element can have different states using the pseudo class selector, and that multiple CSS classes can be applied to one HTML element. We learned that classes can be reusable while IDs can only be used once. We learned that IDs are more specific than classes, and classes are more specific than type. That means IDs will override any styles from a class, and classes will override any styles from a type selector. Multiple selectors can be chained together to select an element, and this raises the specificity, but can be necessary. We learned that nested elements can be selected by separating selectors with a space. Okay. And lastly, we learned that multiple unrelated selectors can receive the same styles by separating the selector names with commas. Cool. All right, so great work, and thanks so much for your help in the chat. I was struggling there. So with this knowledge, we'll be able to use CSS to change the look and feel of websites and make them look great. Alrighty, so that concludes this session. I hope to see y'all at the next one. And until next time, see you, sunshines.